Welcome to the Build a Mind podcast. I'm Joel Thomas.
And I'm Kalen Folk.
And I just want to mention here that the Build a Mind podcast is brought to you by mcftools.net today and MCF Digital. I can't speak English today. Boy, just
restart.
Right out of the gate. Now we're good. MCF Digital's decision intelligence platform helps oil and gas operators and Bitcoin mining entrepreneurs evaluate stranded gas in 3 paths. You can sell it, electrify it, or mine Bitcoin with it. MCF Digital offers you 5-3 calculators to thoroughly analyze any stranded gas site so that you can make the most profitable decision. Go run the math at mcftools.net. And always, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin mining and deep dive into the Bitcoin mining world, please check out all of our great Telegram groups like Scott's Deals here, where you can find all of the best deals on mining stuff or mining container talk. There's ASIC repair. Hit the QR code here popping up on the screen, and we can help you learn more about the world of Bitcoin mining. So today we've got a really great guest on. His name is Kyle Huber, and Kyle is a Bitcoin storyteller, entrepreneur, and creator behind the We Are Satoshi movement. Focused on the human side of Bitcoin adoption, he explores themes like freedom, creativity, and sovereignty through media, including his work on a documentary film that he's working on in Bulgaria, which we're super excited to see. Kyle is especially passionate about using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, not just holding it. I can't wait to go down that rabbit hole. And he's also likes to help people live a permissionless and more international life. So let's welcome Kyle here to the podcast.
Welcome, Joel, Kalen. Great to see you guys today, and thank you for having me on the podcast.
For sure.
Absolute pleasure. So Kyle, why don't you give us your background and tell us your story a little bit, and let the audience know who you are and a little bit about you.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep it quick. I am a curious human being at kind of the base level. I was always asking questions, and just when I was about 15 years old, it was the shift between basically trusting the world and everything that I was told. I was just like, great, I'm a sponge. I'm going to take all this information. And when I was 15 years old, I found out that 9/11 was an inside job. And from there, my mind at 15 was just like blown. I was like, holy crap. Like if 9/11 is an inside job and they're lying to us about this, like what else are they lying to us? So it just triggered this, what I described at the time as this like awakening. And at the time I thought everybody's going to experience this awakening, right? Like, of course, like I see this happen, like some other people are going to figure it out. And in 3-4 years, we're going to have like a revolution across the world. That was my like 15-year-old mind. Fast forward a couple years, that didn't happen. Things are dragging out. These wars in the Middle East are going on and on and on. I was learning about the Federal Reserve, the money system, all this stuff at that time, but I never connected the dots to Bitcoin until COVID. The COVID comes around. They sent me a check in the mail, and I asked a simple question: where'd the money come from? Didn't come from taxes. So where'd it come from? Came from thin air, right? So that was ultimately the entry point to Bitcoin for me. And professionally, I've been a freelance videographer, run my own business. I do like client video work. And it was an obvious connection after I had a long career path, I guess. I'm 31 years old. I've had a couple of different things. I started a supplement company, but left that, started picking up a camera again.
Really?
Bitcoin
What
space.
supplements did you sell? Because I used to have one too. I don't want to go off the rails.
No, I started a natural. It's interesting because it was very aligned with Bitcoin. Like my values as a human being were in this business. It was a transparent supplement. So we told our customers all the ingredients and how much of them were in the product. Very rare. Most supplements, like they hide what's in the product. It's called Earthy. liveearthy.co is the website. It's still a great product. I'm just an investor. I'm no longer.
Dude, that space is crazy, man. Like if there's okay, I don't want to totally off the rails here, but I went through a period of about 18 months where I had like a CBD company, and I will tell you that if there's something that'll get you into being a Bitcoiner, it's being debanked. Where it's like you have like an $85,000 batch deposit fund hold just show up on you one day, and you're like, cool, how do I pay off the traffic bill? And how do I pay this bill? And, how do I pay the lab bill? And, you have a panic attack. And, when you lose your ability to take payment processing because some bank just tries to it's the sketchiest, craziest world. Supplements. All the banks are borderline black hat doing borderline illegal stuff to make you go through payment processing loopholes so they can charge you fees. So anyways, that made me really hate banks. And I'm sure you can relate to this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Chargebacks. Yeah. Banks, like payment processors not allowing our payments. Why? Because we have adaptogen mushrooms in the product, like not psychedelic mushrooms. Like, so it's like,
But just change the name and run it through a different LLC to process into your holding company, and then we'll help you set it up. But we're not going to allow you to process on your own mids. Yeah. Oh my
anyways,
God.
the one thing I'll say about that is there's no ability to verify. You have to just trust in the supplement industry. You literally, you read the back of the package. It's a proprietary blend. You have no idea what's in there. And as Bitcoiners, like if you want to take ownership of your health, how are you supposed to do that if you can't actually, you don't even know what you're putting in your body? That was kind of the thesis of our business. And yeah, that kind of leads towards the idea of transparency in Bitcoin. So yeah, I'm excited to get more into this stuff.
Yeah, that's wild, man. The world is small for sure. So tell us about the We Are Satoshi movement here that you've got going on.
Oh man, the movement is not me. We are all Satoshi, right? You've heard this term. I just started a podcast called We Are Satoshi because 3 words is a little bit easier to put into a little logo than 4. But basically, I wanted to start a podcast. I was like, I want to talk about Bitcoin. I've had other podcasts in the past. It's a really fun medium, as you guys know. It's a great way to spend a Sunday morning. And I was listening to Seb Bunny. Do you know who that is?
Do not.
Okay, he's a Canadian Bitcoiner and wrote a book called The Hidden Cost of Money. And
the book, but okay.
Yeah, so he's on stage in Madeira. I'm watching the live stream. This was in my the phase of Bitcoin when I was going from fully orange pilled to just absolutely radicalized, that phase, right? And I wanted to start a podcast, and he had this description of this idea of we are all Satoshi. We obviously know Satoshi's an anonymous person, and therefore stepped away from the project, right? Satoshi stopped pushing Bitcoin forward in 2010, maybe 2011, I don't know, 2010. And at that point, it became a decentralized movement. It was a decentralized movement, but that's what Bitcoin is, right? Bitcoin itself is just code. It doesn't actually matter at all without the humans on top of it. Same thing for everything in the world. The rocks outside, the water in the ocean, the entire world literally has no meaning unless we place that meaning on it. It's this whole idea of intrinsic value, right? What do we value as human beings? And I'm off the deep end. I don't even know what I was, just lost my train of thought.
That's my favorite argument. I have a friend who's a financial advisor, and our kids play soccer together, and he's in a very, very big firm. So, I went to school for finance, and I understand the TradFi people very well because when you own a business and you're an entrepreneur like we are, you start doing all right, and then you're I don't know if you have kids or not, but I've got some children. So once your business starts doing decent, you're oh boy, well, what happens if something happens to me? I better start planning and putting money away. And am I ever going to retire? And what does that look like? And so you start going down that rabbit hole, and the thing that got me is, I see my friend every weekend or every week a couple of times. And, I'm a hardcore maxi Bitcoin toxic maximalist, as he would say, with an insane risk tolerance. And I like to throw it at him because he doesn't know how to handle it. And then he comes back and we go back and forth and stuff. And he said to me, once we were talking about hold on, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. What were we talking about a second ago?
Bro, I did the same thing. You asked me what we are Satoshis
right.
about. I'm explaining how it's this decentralized movement. It's Sunday morning, man. I had coffee, trust me, we're gonna be all right. The idea is that each of us individually is not gonna change the world, but together
intrinsic value.
Intrinsic value. There you go.
Thank you. So he's well, my problem with Bitcoin is it doesn't have any intrinsic value. And I'm oh my God. And he always grills me with that one. And, then I start going, and so, I'm slowly converting him. I made him read the Bitcoin Standard. That helped him a lot. And he's on his way, but I did get him on this. I was like, hey man, what do you think inflation is? He's oh, it's CPI. And I'm oh yeah, well, the money's being debased at 7%. You should, and he comes back 3 weeks later. He's dude, I did some research into that, and you're right. And it totally breaks all of our models. And he's I don't know what to do. I don't know how he couldn't process it. I'm you're already a Bitcoiner. You just don't even know it.
Just haven't made that first leap.
It takes time. It takes a lot of time, and it's okay, right? If Bitcoin was easy to understand, the price would be freaking who knows what, millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I'm grateful for the information asymmetry.
For sure, there's still opportunity within the industry.
That's what I want to say early in this podcast, guys. It is the best time to ever get into Bitcoin, to start using it, to align your life with it, and to buy it, to study it. I like buying it is one thing, but like just owning it, there's so much more like once you get into this rabbit hole that, and I think like one of the reasons why I was excited to come on this podcast is I just recently had an episode with Kent Halliburton, the CEO of a mining company called SAS Mining.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me he had some incredible commentary on this idea and just got me excited about mining. He says all Bitcoiners end up in mining eventually because it's the best way to acquire what he calls wild sats, but non-KYC sats that's not associated with your identity whatsoever. So yeah, he describes, I mean, we could talk a little bit more about mining and stuff right now too. Yeah, let's do it. Because he was talking about how there's like going to be a different price between like black market Bitcoin and like non-KYC Bitcoin and like KYC, like OFAC type Bitcoin. Sure. But yeah, you guys, I want to learn some stuff from you about mining. Maybe tell me a little bit about your podcast, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. So actually, Kalen, I'll let you go first. I'm talking too much here.
No, yeah. So, I mean, to start things off, we can see behind you, you've got the heat bit rocking. So you've started to dip the toes into it for sure. But yeah, truly, I mean, right now, the industry is just made up of a whole bunch of, mostly at least made up of just these large scale industrial mining farms. And the biggest threat to Bitcoin is just centralization. And if you look at the pool spread, I mean, between two pools, you can get 70% of the total hash rate. You know, if those two pools decide to start commingling together, you know, you get a monopoly form. Now they can do what happened to Monero a few months back, you know, just completely rewrite transactions. I mean, I think the future of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, the only way that we're going to be able to stay sustainable is from people like what you're doing right behind you. You know, everybody at home is starting to utilize their Bitcoin miners to help decentralize the network, but not just to mine Bitcoin. It's a hard sell to just mine Bitcoin, but I'm sure everybody's seen the water tank that just came out of a month ago or so. You know, if $2,000, you've got an S21 level ASIC that's going to save you money compared to just running a normal electric water heater.
It's crazy. I just replaced the water heater like 6 months ago, and it was like thousands of dollars. And of course it broke like a week before or after the warranty expired. So, you know, I'm sitting there like so pissed at the guy sitting there. It's like, oh yeah, we got to get a new one. He had to replace my water heater like 3 times. I kid you not, because they kept bringing in defective ones. Had I known I could mine Bitcoin and heat my water, dude, oh my God, like it's a no brainer.
It's at a good hash rate too. Like it's super efficient. My one question is like I've never ran any heat reuse type Bitcoin miners at the house, but have you seen any issues with have you ran into any issues? Because I know running thousands of miners, I mean, we have 10, 20 of them break a day. Are you
asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, man. You've got those heat miners.
Look, I've got the product here. I like the people at this company, Heatbit. This is their like base level version. And my understanding is that their like more expensive one is significantly more efficient. I'll tell you right now, this thing's not. It's a conversation starter. It's a fun thing to have. Is it saving me money? It claims it's saving me 25%. You know, it's got an app here. It tells you your savings over time. I've been using it for, you can see there's maybe right there, 12,000 sats. I've mined 12,000 sats in like 3 months. So like,
all right,
I don't know how much it's cost me to run it. It's not nothing.
Well, look at it like this. I think what a mistake some people, again, it depends on your scale here. Let's go finance bro for a second. Everybody's always calculating like current value, you know, like what's the price today? And am I saving money today? And I'm like, dude, in my brain, I'm always calculating future value on small transactions. So it's kind of like, I do personal mining where I've got 4 ASICs hosted and I'm planning on scaling it here. And I think to myself, like, I don't care what the price is now because I haven't outscaled to the point where I can pay the power bill every month. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of just taking it out of pocket, accumulating. I'm never going to sell the Bitcoin ever. So for me, my thought is I don't look at the present value of the Bitcoin when I'm making the calculation. What matters is like, let's say Sailor's right and the Bitcoin's 21 and 21. So I look at like, if I mine, let's just say like 0.13 this year, and even at like a $10 million price, I'm like, dude, that's like $1.3 million in 20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So
but the real question obviously is it going to outperform just buying Bitcoin today? Right. Like, I mean, that same money.
It
Yeah.
depends. You know, it's cheaper to buy Bitcoin sometimes and it's cheaper to
Mhm.
mine it. And like any market, there's ups and downs. Here's what I do like about it is one, tax advantages are super awesome. Especially, I'll give you an example. Like, okay, so one of my other businesses, I did way better, and I'm literally doing taxes this weekend. You know, paying money to the extortionist government. You know, taxation is theft, extortion, and coercion. Had to throw that in there, but thinking
not
about
theft
it.
if you send it to him.
That's a pretty good
It's
argument.
coercion. I'll give you coercion.
That's awesome.
But yeah, go ahead.
Anyways, you know, some things are great on a t-shirt and they're fun to just yell out in public and just
No,
watch.
I
people
fucking
like-
hate the government, man.
Dude.
Sorry, my language.
Don't we all? Okay,
Well,
so what I was saying, I lost my train of thought about Bitcoin.
No, just like
taxes.
curious, like how you think about when it's viable. Like you're
Right,
kind of describing like a good
Mhm.
framework for how to think about mining and home mining. Like I
So
kind of came into
here's
this
the
thing like it's
thing.
not financially like viable. I'm with you. Like that's not why you have this. You don't do this to like acquire more Bitcoin.
DCA every day, no matter whether you want to or not, was something I love because when the market's tanking, I remember it was at what 123,000 not too long ago, and all the way down. I've been buying every single second of every single day because I'm mining, right? And then so now we're sitting here down here. So whether I have any dry powder in my bank account to try to time the market and buy the bottom, right? Like everybody thinks they're going to do, but somehow magically most of us never actually do because we're not pro traders. You know, as you're sitting there in your account and you're like, all right, it's going to go down like 5,000 more. And then I'm going to take a pull and then it goes up and then you're like, damn it. And then you buy it. And then you're like, all right, well now I'm late. And then it goes down and you're like, oh, I just bought the local top. So anyways, what I like about it is you're constantly DCAing. What I really like about it are the tax advantages. Cause like I said, I had a business and I was working on my taxes and I'm like, man, I made way more money on this thing than I should have. And I didn't estimate enough. And now my tax liability is going to be crazy. Oh, good thing I bought like $30,000 in Bitcoin miners last year because now I can take that 30 grand and I can just write it all off against my income there. And now that substantially reduces my tax liability, which makes me very, very happy. So for me, I look at it as like I'm taking that tax liability, I'm converting it into, you know, future value of that. It's just like I would have had to give that money to the government anyways, but now I've turned it into sats and I've turned it into something that's going to outgrow and outpace the amount of debasement that they can do. So I don't know.
No, that's so cool, man. Yeah, that is
to me, it's like an offset. I buy it and I mine it.
That's a different level, right? Like you're talking about like 4 or 5 miners and or maybe more. That's like a larger amount that can really write off a lot. No, that is something that people at my Bitcoin walk always talk about. They're like, man, like you could spend $100,000 on things that you now own that produce value, right? That you could then sell and write the whole depreciation off in the first year. It is a game changer for sure.
It just depends, you know, like
it's when it really starts making sense. That's when mining really starts making sense. When you're not worried about efficiency, when you're talking about replacing appliances in your house, you're just talking about, well, hey, right now my appliances don't earn me any Bitcoin. So if I can just warp Bitcoin into it in some type of way, then you're getting the added bonus.
Yeah. Well, if it just simply outperforms like the water heater does, then it'll win. But I'm never going to rely on other people to be as like ideological as I am, right? Like 100%. I will buy this thing just to say I'm mining Bitcoin. Like that is enough value for me, you know? So
yeah, and there's not too many people out there like that. More and more increasingly growing, but yeah.
Well, that's another reason to mine though. Okay. This is important. This is why I got into mining. First, it wasn't money. You know, you had that passion struck where you're just like, you know, you reach that ideological flipping point like a light switch and you're just like Bitcoin, laser eyes. All that matters is Bitcoin. My whole new hypothesis and theory in life, or, you know, operational hypothesis is to acquire Bitcoin and support the network. So for me, I was just like, I just want to mine Bitcoin to support the network and, you know, diversify hash rate in my little way. Cause I don't have $100 million fleet of miners operating in a warehouse. Obviously, like it's hard to compete with those guys, but it's like, hey, if I can get a couple of miners in the game, that to me is adding some value to the network. It's supporting something I actually really, really care about that I think is important, that needs to win for the sake of humanity. So I just want to mine. So for me, I'll risk the money and I don't care if, you know, I make money short term or lose money. I know long term I'm going to make a ton of money on it and it's going to be worth it. But more importantly, you know, I'm contributing to something bigger than myself in my own small little way. And that just gets me excited every day. So, you know, even having like a little BitX at home, you know, and like, it's just awesome. Like I want to get more, you know, I want to put one in my office and I got a node at home and I want to spin up another node at my office just to have 2 nodes because you're supporting the network that much more. And again, if you believe in something, I feel like you should put your money where your mouth is and you should support it. And sometimes that involves you being selfless, kind of just like some people do charity organizations or like community events. Like I'm going to go volunteer at a shelter, or I'm going to give money to this school initiative or whatever. Me, I want to put money into the Bitcoin network, and I want to support the network, and I want to help spread the orange gospel to all of the non-believers out there who are stuck in fiat land and are suffering, but don't quite understand why.
Well, and really so for Kyle, you like spending, you like using your Bitcoin, and Joel here, as he stated a few times just this episode, is I'm never selling my Bitcoin. So kind of show your argument for spending your Bitcoin.
Convert
why
me, man.
Why should somebody spend their Bitcoin and not just hold on to it?
For the exact reason that Joel just articulated. You want to grow the network. And it's not it's actually even slightly more selfish. Like me, I selfishly live on a Bitcoin standard, 100% of my savings is in Bitcoin. Therefore, in the future, if let's say I want to buy a car, a house, I want to move, whatever, doesn't matter. I have a family in the future. If I have to take my Bitcoin, convert it to fiat, go through a bank, get permission from that bank, get permission from Jerome Powell, then to buy the good or service at the other end of that thing, this whole mission has failed, guys. Like Bitcoin is completely irrelevant if we can't spend it on things directly. So, and the price of Bitcoin, if you are just looking at it from a number perspective, like you're just a number, I just want the number to be $1 billion per coin. Guess what? We're going to go a lot higher if it's something that people use and accept as payment all over the world. So that's kind of my general view on it. It's way different than I'm not saying deplete your savings. Like that's the last thing I'm saying. Like, yes, it's going to be worth 10 million a coin. Of course, hold on to those things. But you can go support a merchant and give them the best money that's ever been discovered, and then just go buy more for the same cost. And then you have the same amount of Bitcoin, and you've just grown the network. And now you're going on offense instead of defense. That's how I see spending Bitcoin. Like holding Bitcoin is defensive, awesome, builds the network. Like that's great. Actually spending it, that's like growing the network. So that's the short pitch.
It really wasn't even a possibility until 6-7 months ago, just due to the tax reasons. But now if I'm not mistaken, it's every transaction under $200, you're not liable.
They passed that. Am I wrong?
I don't think that's been passed, and real Bitcoiners don't care. I'll tell you guys right now, if you go travel the world, you talk to Bitcoiners, are you guys paying 32 cents in taxes on your coffee transaction? Get out of here.
100%.
Nobody does that. Literally you have to be insane to do that.
But I wonder if that I think more laws like that do need to be pushed through, because while us with our mindset are you think the IRS is going to come after me over 20 coffees this year where I'd owe them $4. It cost them how many thousands of dollars to find all this shit out.
Well, the hard challenge is this. It's taxed as property, right? So property would mean the same as your real estate or something like that, right? It's not like a currency because they can't control it. If there was a currency, there'd be no tax on it. We could just flip it around and transact on it. So they've decided to classify it as property, which makes it.
I think about it as money. And if they want to classify it as property and put some tax on it, that's fine. For me, it's my money, and I'm not fucking paying taxes on a transaction that I do. It's just not happening. So for other people, maybe that is a hindrance and a friction for them. Again, guys, I'm an ideological guy and I hate the government, and I'm willing to live with the consequences of my actions because I'm a grown adult with autonomy. I'm a free man. I'm making these decisions knowing that there are potential consequences. We don't need to go too far down this tax rabbit hole, but it is ultimately that. This is why I'm so passionate about Bitcoin, why I think it's so much more than just an asset or an investment. This is our opportunity as a humanity, as a species, to free ourselves from this whole fiat slavery thing forever. And I think it's either going to happen in the next, call it 3 generations, or it's not. Maybe 4 or 5. It's not going to happen probably in my lifetime where we see the whole world convert to a Bitcoin standard. I used to think that could be possible. Probably not. But in a few lifetimes, it is possible. So in my view, the best thing that I can do is set up my next generation to continue this battle. And hopefully if enough people get it, I think freedom is such like a core part of what it means to be human being. That's why I'm from the US. You guys are born in the
Right.
US.
Yeah. We've all lost our sovereignty in most countries. I was just going to ask you, we'll hit this in a second. If you've ever been to like El Salvador or like Thailand, they just have no capital gains now. There's a lot of countries that are starting to adopt this. But, I think about like myself, being an American citizen, which has the worst tax treatment ever. Cause like, I'll give you an example. All my European friends who own companies, dude, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to move to Dubai. And we're going to pay 2% tax and screw the French government. Like we don't want to deal with their BS and their corporate tax because they pay tax. And there's only 2 countries in the world that do this. They pay tax where they reside. If I go and reside in Cambodia, I'm paying U.S. taxes to the damn IRS unless I renounce my citizenship. Now, I got 3 kids and a wife and a home and school and all that crap. So, my location is tied down. I can't. I wish I could live on a Bitcoin standard, but I have to live on a fiat one because I live in a totally fiat world here. And it really pisses me off as a Bitcoiner because I'm just like, man, I wish you could transact. Like, for example, my wife is from Russia. And there's a proxy war going on right now between our countries, and they've cut the SWIFT system off to the Russians, and they can't transact. But dude, how do we get around it? We give the middle finger to both of our governments, and me and my clients, we transact back and forth in Bitcoin. When I want to send my wife and kids money when they're over there visiting her parents, guess what? I'm sending Bitcoin, and then she has to off ramp it there, and vice versa. But which is annoying. But again, it's nice because we're bypassing the whole international sanction cabal of the banks that have said that we're not going to allow Russian to transact on the SWIFT system anymore. So I love the idea of like some of the clients that I work with in one of my businesses, like other Bitcoiners they'll pay me for my services and vice versa in Bitcoin, and we'll do these transactions. And it's like really liberating and exciting. I wish I could just like buy gas. I mean, again, the closest thing I can get that is I can go buy the Gemini or get the Gemini card, and I can at least get rewards on all my spend. That's the closest I can get to where I am. Like I said, because I don't have locational movement.
No, what I would say honestly is living on a Bitcoin standard actually doesn't mean spending Bitcoin all the time. Like in my mind, like it's more of a mindset, it's how you denominate. And I think probably you already are there from what you're describing. Like you think about the future valuation of sats. Like if you're denominating in sats, when you go buy something like, oh man, I could spend 20 bucks or, ooh, that's 30,000 sats right now. Oof, man, it's a lot of sats. You're already pretty much there. And then like the Bitcoin standard, I think branches out to like health, relationships, spirituality. Like there's a lot of other angles.
Those are great topics to unpack, actually.
Yeah.
I totally want to go down that rabbit hole. Keep going.
Oh, no. I just, I would give you more credit than you deserve. Like, we all live in the fiat world. I live there's not many places I can spend my Bitcoin here, but I consider myself living on a Bitcoin standard because I'm actively doing everything I can to move my time and energy into Bitcoin. Like I'm podcasting, I'm making a film about Bitcoin. I try and earn Bitcoin, which I think is a huge shift. Once you start earning Bitcoin, then it's like, that's just your money. You're like, oh, okay, I can just like, of course I need to spend some, I need to live. Like actually yesterday, I just got a down payment for a project I'm doing in Bitcoin, half the project up front. Of course, within 5 minutes of getting the payment, it drops 2%, of course. Right?
Have you seen what CJ Constantinos is doing at the People's Reserve? So for example, you can pledge some of your Bitcoin and you can actually get a mortgage now. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I haven't looked into like the finance details yet and how like it works, but just the idea of, instead of going to like a trad bank, walking in, being like, all right, give us your W-2 or whatever you've got. We'll qualify you. Then, you have to go through that system. You can literally be like, all right, I've got Bitcoin and now I'm going to go take my house and I'm just going to play, and that's great. I think it's really cool to see people bringing stuff like that to market. So
it's pristine capital. And as the market figures that out, like, Bitcoin's going to be the best thing for all that, like loaning and all that stuff.
So tell us about this documentary that you're working on here in Bulgaria.
You guys are both going to ask that. Awesome. So I started going to Bitcoin conferences because of this exact reason. I just want to put my time and energy into Bitcoin. And a YouTuber by the name of Luke Broyles tweeted out like, I need a videographer for El Salvador. And so actually my first ever Bitcoin event that I ever attended, I'd never met a Bitcoiner in real life. I show up at the halving party at this like all-inclusive resort in El Salvador with like all these Bitcoiners, like Ben Sessions, Max Kaiser, bunch of guys like that I've seen on podcasts that I've heard. And now all of a sudden I'm like in the room with them, meeting them. Like it was just such a trip. So I went from like literally up in my house in Seattle being this Bitcoiner that's just radical, but like didn't know anybody, to like 10 times more radical going to this event and coming home. You guys ever go to like summer camp as a kid and you come home and you're like, I'm going to be a better person. I had such a good time. I'm changed, you know, like that's what it was.
That's how I feel after every conference. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like when you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, man, it's like you want to explain it to everybody you know, and you're like, I don't have any Bitcoin friends. And it's how we ended up here. Like the guy who owns Bitcoin Mining World, Scott, he lives 20 minutes on the street from me. And I'm like, I would just want to go hang out with Bitcoin people because I'm tired of talking to myself about it and getting dumb stares from people whose brains just can't comprehend it yet. So I went to a Bitcoin meetup and I came back and I'm just like so fired up. My wife's like, what's wrong with you? You know, like, and I'm like, I just want to talk to somebody about Bitcoin and I can't talk to you about it because you have no interest. And my 10-year-old kid, like he gets excited about it, but he's 10. You know, he's not bringing anything stimulating or any good arguments to the table. He's just learning. So yeah, totally. And then you go to an event and you come back and you're like, oh my God, there's other people like me. This is sick.
Yeah. So that basically that was my first event. And then Luke was like, hey, we had a good time. Let's go to Bulgaria of all places. So my second Bitcoin event was Sofia, Bulgaria, the Bitcoin conference there. And I just made friends with the guys there, really down to earth people. You guys know where Bulgaria is, like Eastern.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Eastern Europe. You look a little like Eastern European. Are you?
Yeah. Again, I'm married to a Russian. So that's all Cyrillic, Slavic language, Bulgaria. But Bulgaria is a place where a frown is actually a smile.
You have to be open-minded because sometimes you'll think someone's yelling at you and they're actually just like greeting you or talking to you and you're like, what's going on? Anyways, yeah, they're great people, awesome people, and I really resonated with them. Specifically one guy, his name is Ivan Makedonsky. He was my third guest on the We Are Satoshi podcast. He had this whole he gave a talk at Prague, at the conference in Prague, about his story around this idea of permissionless work. So it's like, if you want to get a job in Bitcoin, like just do work. Like you literally, Bitcoin is permissionless and also building on Bitcoin is permissionless. So he just started applying himself, eventually met Jeff Booth. Jeff Booth introduced him to Roy from Breeze, and he got this dream job that he's thriving in and helping build Breeze, which is a lightning payments infrastructure company. So his story basically inspired me. Okay, like I can do this too. Like, let me just like do work and like, let's see what happens. So I started doing that and doors started opening. I started filming with like lots of different brands and creators. And Ivan reached back out to me and was like, dude, do you want to do a full movie in Bulgaria? So it was like, I knew how big of a commitment a full movie is. I've never done one before. And so I thought about it for a while and I really like deeply thought, like, what do I want to do with my precious time on this earth? And I said, you know what, if I was a billionaire today, what would I do right now? Shit, man, I would probably like have a podcast and like make a film, right? Like I don't have kids. I do need to support my kids in the future, but today I'm doing all right. And like I have Bitcoin.
Having kids is part of being a Bitcoiner at some point in your life.
But I recognize that I'm at a stage in my life where I don't have that yet. And therefore I have the obligation to take the risk to do something that I feel called to do. And so, yeah, I went to Bulgaria last summer and spent a month just traveling the country, meeting all the different people building on Bitcoin, not just like software developers, but people that run the community meetups. There's a restaurant services company. These guys, I learned a ton from them. We could talk about that separately, but I think some of the coolest days, honestly, genuinely, one of my favorite days of the whole trip was visiting this guy who mines Bitcoin off grid in like this small village and has regenerative beef farm. So they're like ranchers, a family farm. They need a bunch of refrigeration during the summer. It's quite hot in Bulgaria, and they need enough electricity in the winter. So they built the solar system for the winter demands, right? I'm probably speaking your guys' language. Mm-hmm. Therefore, in the summertime, he's got like a ton of excess energy. Both of these guys do. And so they plug in the Bitcoin miners and they have brains or whatever other computer system automating it. So these guys literally hands off, just have a system that is aware of how much energy their house is using and aware of how much energy is coming from the sun and gets to decide how high do we want to put the Bitcoin miners? Do we want to have them full power, half power? So you can see the chart throughout the day of these guys mining throughout the day. And it's just super cool. Like one of the quotes, it's going to be in the film for sure, but he said, look, you ever see that meme of the grandfather and he's talking to his grandkids? Mm-hmm. And like, it's like, hey dad, like where were you like during whatever, like, where were you during the Great Reset, dad?
Yeah.
And basically like his name is Demeter. He says, I want to be that guy who says, back then I was mining Bitcoin. I was mining 10,000 sats a day with, like fucking legend. Like that's the whole thing. So,
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great example of what mining's doing. I'll give you another cool example. I met a guy at Mining Disrupt who he was buying a piece of land in Florida, and he was like into the compost industry. And he was like, I could buy this land and I could use the heat from the Bitcoin miners, and I could speed up my composting business and make it more profitable, but also get Bitcoin at the same time. So you see all these people coming up with these really creative energy usage like situations where they go out, they find some energy that was just being wasted, stranded gas, etc., and they turn it into money, and it's helping so many people around the world, from small operations to entire countries, monetize things that were just already there, that were just being thrown away. And I mean, that in itself is game changing. And you try to explain that to people that are like, oh, isn't mining like really bad for the environment? And you're like, well, not really. It's kind of like the capacitor, or most people don't know what a capacitor is, but like it's like the battery, like we soak up this energy that's being wasted and we turn it into economic energy. And that's a long rabbit hole to go down. But
yeah, the whole like Bitcoin mining's bad for the environment trope, it can be left before 2020. It's like it was during the whole COVID ramp up. Everybody was freaking out. They just wanted something to bitch about. But like Joel's saying, like Bitcoin miners search for stranded energy that's not being used, but is still the residents in the area are still paying for it to be created. The power company is not just going to eat that portion of the bill. So they're still going to pass those savings off to the residents in the area. When a Bitcoin miner can come in and step up, I mean, it not only lowers rates for the surrounding area, but in crazy times with like tropical storms come through, a big winter ice storm comes through, they can shut down immediately, like within seconds, and redirect that energy back to the people. It just making the all around like living experience better. The way that these data centers are coming into play is a different story, but luckily with the data centers coming into play, the focus has gone more towards them opposed to the Bitcoin mining data centers. I'm ready to live in a world where everybody just kind of accepts it. It's like, yeah, no, we're generating a shitload of power. Get over it. It's like
we need more power. If we want humanity to evolve, like just study history for 5 seconds, that every single time humanity grows, like innovation wise, is a result of having excess energy. So there's this meme, right? It's people say Bitcoin boils the oceans or Bitcoin's bad for the environment, and then it shows like a fleet of like aircraft carriers and like warships just like moving in the ocean. It's like, which one's more bad for the environment, right? Or like they just last week in the Iran, I shouldn't even call it the Iran war, it's the Israel-American war. They just blew up a freaking oil field, and now there's toxic rain coming down. It's like, that's fiat. That's what fiat does. Okay. So if you think a little excess, using of consumption of energy that's going to be wasted energy, either way is worse than like the war and destruction. It's just like when you start to weigh it that way, it's not even close. Yeah. So here, I want to ask you guys, because I think there's some really interesting conversation that we a little bit skipped by specific to mining. And Kaylin, you were talking about it earlier, the biggest threat to Bitcoin, right? Because people will say to me like, the biggest threat, people will criticize Bitcoin ownership, because that's the big trend recently is big money is coming into Bitcoin. Holders, long-term holders are selling their coins. The ownership structure of Bitcoin is moving more from individuals more towards like institutions, right? So people think, oh my goodness, like that's a problem. Michael Saylor has all these coins, BlackRock's acquiring, blah, blah, blah. That's not a problem, right? Because we don't have a proof of stake network. We have a proof of work network. The real problem, to your point, is the mining centralization. That's the legitimate threat. So like when people come at me with FUD and they're like, oh, it's bad for this, Bitcoin's going to fail because of quantum, I'm like, dude, you don't understand. Like those are all irrelevant. Like the
clearly
real threat,
you don't run a node if you think that quantum and Bitcoin, because it's just like, oh, update. All right, cool. 10 minutes later. All right, we're quantum proof. Like somebody, and the other thing that pisses me off about quantum is just like, I don't know. It's like Y2K. I'm a little older than you guys. And I remember like when that was a thing. And my dad used to have an IT firm where it was all programmers that worked at banks and everybody was, it's the end of the world. 1999, all the computers are going to shut down. The economy is going to crash. All of the bank codes when it rolls over because we don't have that extra digit. This was like the FUD on that was crazy in the 90s, late 90s. It was insane. And I remember that. And I'll tell you that then the clock flipped and here we are in 2026. And guess what? Nothing. We're all alive, you know? So I kind of feel like, boy, we're worried about Bitcoin going down when it's like, look, there's almost a quintillion, is my math right? There's like $900 trillion worth of money in the economy worldwide, a value that's sitting out there. Like, it's a lot easier to hack the freaking banking system than it is to crack SHA 256. Let's be honest. You know,
right.
So
it's like passwords and seed.
We're going to go after a $2 trillion asset, but no, we could just take the whole freaking internet down. You know, it's like, come on, like let's step on a little minnow right now. I don't know. It's just, it's silly. It's like,
so go ahead. Oh, so basically what I want to ask you guys, if you thought about this, because I have thought about how Bitcoin changes, because we already know the monetary policy of Bitcoin. Every 4 years, obviously, the supply of the subsidy cuts in half. That means that the current business model for miners, which are actually, for the most part, my understanding is they're not even like most of these public companies they call miners are actually just like hashing companies. They don't even mine, right? So they just send their hash to a pool, and the pool does the actual mining process. So in the future, those companies' business models will not exist in the same way. So like trying to imagine, like, why would the network remain decentralized and secure? I did a podcast with Bob Burnett. He's a great guest. If you guys want an introduction to him, have you guys had him on the show?
No, I believe he's amazing. I've seen him on multiple times.
Yeah, I think our previous host had him on. Yeah, he's mind blowing.
Yeah, and like his whole thing, which I really think is spot on, is like, okay, how like nation states are going to mine Bitcoin not to make the subsidy, but just to have access to block space itself. Like that's the aha moment. You're like, because okay, we're talking about like using excess energy in our homes, like decentralizing the net, like that's for sure going to happen, and that's happening. That's going to be part of it. But I think the second element that combats this centralization that is the biggest threat to Bitcoin is potentially nation state mining and nation states just being like, hey, if we can't be a sovereign nation in the world, if we have to go through somebody else to transact on the Bitcoin network. So he expects like 20 to 30 countries by 2030 to be mining. And that is significantly more decentralized than the current situation, right? So
100%. I believe more mining than we probably know, because it's not like, for example, if Venezuela or Iran, if we take the last two combat incidences, like it's not like they're going to announce, you know, like for example, Russia, they put all these sanctions. So what did they do? They just started paying people in Bitcoin and moving around them. And it's just like, all right, West, middle finger, we're going to circumvent the entire thing and do all of our oil payments in Bitcoin and things like that. So you see stuff like that. And like I said, me having traveled there and doing business there, and, you know, I have a bit of a pulse on the other side of the world and like how they do and see things versus how we see things over there. And, you know, it's interesting to see how different cultures and countries think.
And even if they're not mining themselves, they're getting a piece off of it. Like you mentioned Venezuela, back in 2019, at like the first little farm that I worked at, we purchased like tens of thousands of S9s 2 years after they were viable, right? Like you needed dirt cheap power to make any money off of these. We came across an opportunity out in Venezuela. We did not act on it. Venezuela banned Bitcoin mining, right? But you could send your miners over there for banned for half a cent per kilowatt hour, which is unfathomable. Like truly, like you're never going to find that stateside. You're not going to find it in any Eastern European country, but then you got to pay off the government 30% of whatever you mine. It's like they're still getting their hands in it. So they'll allow. So I think a lot of countries probably already are. They're just not doing it to the same extent where you're talking about like you solo mining themselves. They're using a pool. And I think that like if I'd be kind of shocked if the US just spun up a whole bunch of Bitcoin miners and are like, okay, we're going to start solo mining, unless they held like 30% of the hash rate themselves.
I don't know, man. What's Trump's kid doing down in Texas?
He has a massive data center,
Is he
and
solo mining though, or is he pooled? I'm pretty sure he's
we
pooled.
don't know what they're tied into, but the point is, I don't know. I think more countries and nation states and people are probably doing it than they're letting on to right now. And as time progresses, it'll become more public knowledge. But I wouldn't be
The
surprised.
thing I said I don't know about is the 30% thing. I think nation, because you don't need 30% of the hash rate to guarantee access to block space. Let's say you need to transact once a week on the base chain of the Bitcoin network. You need like 1%, right? Or something.
For sure. I'm not arguing like for the block space argument. It's just for like, well, I mean, it's a company. They have to be profitable to some extent, right? So it's like,
no, they don't if they're a national thing, right? That's
a very good
That's
point.
an interesting economic incentive, because it's like if you're an individual or a corporation on a for-profit model, you have to make money. But if you're a nation state, or you have enough capital, like say you're like Elon Musk, where you just have FU money, you can just take the sunk cost just for the control, and what matters more is the control and the power and the access than does the
and add to that add to that JP Morgan or the big banks like BlackRock, like their customers are going to need a service which is going to rely on moving Bitcoin on the base chain. So the BlackRocks, the big banks, they have an incentive to control hash rate and to control block space rather, to basically be able to promise to their clients that they can move money, right? Like these banks are going to get left behind if they don't actually have access to block space. So
what is the biggest fight in Washington right now? Is it the Clarity Act? You have all these banks lobbying and fighting against Bitcoin or and stable coins because they don't want any competition. And I was listening to some banker, I forgot who the other day, be like, well, we just want to be on an equal playing field. It's like, look, you've been scamming us for ever. And now all of a sudden the gig is up because there's better options, because I can go get 11% yield if I was the type of person that wanted to not be a sovereign operator. But if I was a trad person, I could get 11% just giving it to Sailor and getting STRC. And now you got to compete with that. So, that's what I love about the free market is like, so we'll see how it all plays out. But I like it's an interesting thing, like thought exercise. Like if the world could, Sailor makes a good argument that, look, if you think Bitcoin's going to go to say 10 million or 50 million or become this behemoth and get societal large scale adoption, like you need these big players to get behind it, or it's not going to. Like, it's great that we want to have this little thing, but eventually institutions have to get involved for it to operate on that scale. And hopefully, one could argue that it will change the institutional behavior to be more in line with what we all believe and what we think is better. Who knows?
Gosh.
That's the question still up in the air.
Look at it this way. Sorry to jump you, but this makes the moral argument for home decentralized mining. Like you should at least be running a BitX if you believe in the network and you want, obviously look, you or I cannot compete with the government, but if enough of us have it, what is the government? It's just a collection of people in a geographic location, right? It's a set of rules and an agreement to law and order. So really we are the government, but I think it makes the moral argument that if you believe in Bitcoin, you should be home mining to some degree. You should be running a node and you should be contributing to that network, because again, if enough people do that, it's the only way that we as individual sovereign operators get to have any say in the future of what's going to happen in say 50 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up, like how many homes there are in the US. So there's approximately like 148.7 million homes out there. Just everybody get a BitX out there.
Everyone could. You can't tell me if you can own a home, you can't afford a BitX. Come on.
For sure. Yeah, and like that alone is what, just a BitX, or the Avalon. The Avalons are going out. The little Avalon Nano 6 terahash units, those are $200 now. You're getting S21 efficiency at a much smaller scale, but $200 is like touchable for almost every citizen in the United States. That in other parts of the world that's a little harder, but for $200, and we were talking last episode, I think there's going to be a time where once the chips are continuing to get better and better. Air cooled is kind of fizzling out now just because the chips are getting so small where you can't get them. But there'll be a time where everybody has a pocket-sized S21, where you're getting 200 terahash for 15 watts at the house. It's not producing a lot of heat. But once we get to that scale, I think that's when it will really, people will see the interest and want to start solo mining. Everybody will know somebody who hit a block. That's the dream. That's the dream. Dude,
that is, sounds.
Think about how many
sweet.
BitAxes have already been, like BitAx blocks have already been found in just the past year, and how many of them are out there.
Statistically, none of them should be able to, based off like how much hash rate's out there. But I see it all the time on X, and every time I do, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Too bad it wasn't mine. But next time,
the opportunity cost is there, and I think if everybody you knew had one, like it was just part of it, or everybody's water tank is running. It's like, I don't know if people would be solo mining or if they'd be pool mining if they're doing things like heat reuse, because then it kind of negates the point unless you're just a true Bitcoiner of like offsetting your costs or whatever. But I think that's my perfect world, man, where it's like you walk in, everybody.
Like education is an important component. So like, for example, what an interesting trend here is, in order for that to happen, you need a mass government incentive. You have to explain to all of the normal people that aren't as like crazy as us and aren't as like, I'm just thinking of like the guy that lives down the street from me, where like, he doesn't even know how, he doesn't know what like the Federal Reserve, how it operates, or he doesn't understand what credit is, or like just no idea, you know what I mean? Just like 99% of people. You need an education campaign on a national level. For example, I hear El Salvador, and I have not been there, but I've heard that they're doing great thing. Where in school, they now have classes and public things and, et cetera, where they're educating their population on Bitcoin, why it's important, how it works, et cetera. If that happens at scale, right, where the U.S. government decides to wake up and like, we really want to lead this thing, so we're going to put out an educational initiative, that I think is key. Because once that happens, now people are like, oh yeah, I should mine at home. Like, that's awesome. I'm going to go buy this little miner. Maybe the government comes in and subsidizes it, because what's $100 little miner for a government budget of, they could just print infinite money. I mean, again, you could see a world totally where that could happen. And I think for mass adoption of normal people getting into this, because it's complicated, it takes, 100 hours to really understand this, and hundreds of hours to really, really feel like your stuff.
Let me ask you guys a question real fast.
Yeah.
Which is, in your opinion, more important, or a bigger, like, which is a priority? Running a node or mining?
I'd say mining. I mean, with a node, there only needs to be a few nodes for the whole network to be able to transact, right? But
you individually, from your perspective, like from your individual perspective,
mining for sure.
I'm team node, because
I'm more team node as well, but I'm open to the idea that like mining it's more important for the network. I think running a node is more important for your own ability to transact completely with 100% privacy and sovereignty.
So, yeah,
that's the survivability of Bitcoin too. It's like, if a country gets taken out by an EMP, as long as there's a satellite with a Starlink connection, or what's this mesh thing, the mesh app, where you can do Bitcoin apparently over. I've never seen somebody on that Bit Chat or whatever it's called, but
I've used it.
Yeah, there you go.
Twice. It's one of those things that like you'd never use unless you go to a Bitcoin event, and somebody's going, hey, download Bit Chat. It's like Jack Dorsey's vibe coded app, right? That they
it's going to change though. I mean, again, it starts there. It's an idea, and then more people get excited about it, and then all of a sudden it's like, if you're not on it, what are you doing, you Luddite? Right?
Y'all remember how crazy Apple Pay was, like when that came, or you just text people money? I know, at least being like late teens at that point, everybody's going out in a big group, or Cash App, just those types of things where you're moving money. I could definitely see it where, well, as the boomers keep dying, more and more money is funneling into Bitcoin, right? Once those inheritances come down, we've been seeing that over the last few years. And I think even without the crazy schooling, just the crazy market cycles that Bitcoin has, it draws enough attention in to get people interested. And the next generation of like, oh, look, even the idea to themselves of being like, oh, I have it all figured out. Like, I know better because I'm using this, I think is a big ploy to help push Bitcoin out. But I'd say a node is a good argument if you're trying to spend your Bitcoin and like, so you can send your own transactions through your node,
Or if you
right?
care about the network.
Well, yeah.
Hey, both are important. I'm doing both, you know.
What
But
are you running not? Do you care
no,
about the whole not argument? What is your
is
take on
that argument still going? Dude, I'm not super technical.
Oh yeah, man. Now there's like
The
I
BIP
forgot what it's
110.
called. Yeah, is it BIP 10 or I don't know.
BIP 110.
It's always a fist fight, and what I hate about it is you have to be a real techie, like a programmer, to understand what the hell these guys are talking about half the time, because they're like arguing. It's like watching Adam Back and like Mechanic and a couple of these guys go back and forth. I'm just like, I wish I could follow this, but I'm just not technical enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not technical either, but like at the end of the day, like this is the beautiful thing about podcasting and being in America, and like you have the ability just to like throw around your takes here on a podcast, even though I don't really know what I'm talking about. I originally come from the perspective of like Bitcoin is just money, right? So it's like, let's try and protect Bitcoin as money. I don't want spam on the blockchain. I do respect a lot of the people on the not side, and I don't really land on either side. I just personally am still running like V28 and I just haven't updated or something, you know, of core. But at a certain point, I actually had an interview in my, I asked this question about, to all the Bulgarians as I was traveling around Bulgaria, and because it was super hot last summer. I think the conversation has shifted a bit. It's not as like public and like, it's not all over Twitter. People are talking about other things now that the price went down. But I think it's kind of a philosophical question. It's who gets to decide what is a Bitcoin transaction. If it follows the rules, if the consensus rules are followed, then it gets to go. Like fees are the filter. That's kind of where I like, if you want to change the rules of Bitcoin, then change the rules of Bitcoin. But if someone's following the rules and you're now saying, oh, like let's arbitrarily change that because the coins, like there's like different ways to try and say like this isn't a monetary transaction or it is. Who gets to decide what's valuable? Like if I want to pay $1, yesterday I did a Bitcoin transaction. Actually, I did a couple Bitcoin transactions last night, 250 sats, right? If I want to pay 250 sats to get into the blockchain, I can maybe put a few words in there with my thing. Like what if I want to propose to my girlfriend or tell my girlfriend I love her? Okay, that's intrinsic value. For me, that's value, right? Like I'm putting value on that and I'm going to pay the 250 sats. To the rest of the world, that's spam, right? So it's a tough situation.
This is why you want to know, because you get a vote. I mean, there you go. I mean, you want an opinion, you have an opinion, you get a vote. It's a democratic process. If enough people say, hey, this is how we want to do it, then that's what it's going to be. That's going to be just like if somebody centralizes the hash power, they can decide, what happens. So
I just think it's a dumb argument to filter out spam. Like I didn't realize, like all sick shit, whatever. It's get rid of that. But it's just like the internet. You punish the actors, you don't punish the system, right? You don't stop using the internet because people use it to do bad stuff. But the argument for allowing spam, I think, is the increased transaction fees. And or increased transaction fees for miners, block rewards. That's
for allowing it.
Yeah.
I think miners are incentivized to mine to make the most money, of course.
And I don't see why. Like, so when I started seeing people argue against allowing ordinals and like their own Bitcoin NFT, I'm not ever touching that stuff. I'll just keep Bitcoin as Bitcoin. But if somebody else wants to do that and my miners get paid more money for it, which incentivizes a decentralized network, it's like, how could that not be a good thing? Because right now transaction fees are ass. Hardly anybody is using Bitcoin, which is lowering the incentive to miners. I just don't see the bad in it, like whatsoever. I think it's really just an ideological thing that people get set on, where it's like, no, my Bitcoin is only allowed to be used for this. It's like, it's stifling innovation.
I've heard people go as far to say that it's the bandwidth usage of their Wi-Fi that's the real issue. Like relaying it is adding the amount of data that goes across their Wi-Fi, which like, look,
there's that.
I get it. Maybe there's certain people that's an issue, but like for me, if like a few megabytes comes across my Wi-Fi, it doesn't really, like I don't even notice, right? So maybe if you're in Africa, you're more at the end of like you don't have good internet service, it could make a difference. Or, the reality is like it does increase the amount of data on the blockchain, especially before op return when people were like creating more UTXO bloat with the spam. So that means that, which I don't know, I just actually made a post about this the other day. It's like, I don't know if it's happening in like the Bitcoin mining space, but solid state drives, I'm a videographer. So like having access to fast hard drives is important. I purchased a solid state drive in 2024 for $300. I went on Amazon yesterday, 2 days ago, $750 for the same thing. So like if for us in the West, it's like, okay, we can run a node. If it's $1,000, if it's $200, if we care enough, we're going to run it. For much of the world, like the difference of like how much storage you need to put on your node and how much, like basically my point is like having more data transmitting in the mempool and the blockchain does make it harder to run a node for the people on the edges, right?
That's the best argument I've heard for it. Genuinely, that's not just like strictly ideological based. You know, it's like that's got some real meat on its bones. That's
you know what's funny, guys? You're gonna laugh. I've watched a lot of really smart people argue this on X, and I'm always just like, it's overwhelming because it's so technical. You guys have articulated, just going back and forth, like a better, cleaner, easier to understand and digest
the pleb version.
Than that's the problem with some of these people, is like they're so technically smart they can't speak. That's why I've always liked, for example, Thomas Sowell as an economist, because you read his books and you're like, I could literally read this to like a 5-year-old as a bedtime story and they would understand it. Then you go and read to like, say, Friedman or Marx, just if you want to diametric opposites, and it's like, I feel like I have to have a PhD in linguistics to even get through 3 sentences, because there's so much. Look how intelligent I am with my word bloat.
Yep, that's
it totally. Sometimes people who are really, really highly hyper intelligent and specialized in technical stuff are terrible communicators, and they cannot break things down in a way that most people can understand it. So I think that's one of the challenges that the whole like knots, et cetera, side is like, these guys are so technical. They're doing a really terrible job, in my opinion, of explaining it to somebody like me who isn't a programmer, who doesn't want to sit there and like try to like ordinals. Okay, hold on. What is that? How does that work? You know, what is the impact? I just like somebody just lay it out in really simple English, like this. Here's the flip side of it. This. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, it's like you want the Cliff Note version so you can at least process it instead of like some essay about some, I don't know. That's just,
it's a tough one. Yeah. I mean, everyone should think for themselves, but also don't overly identify with an opinion. Like, you as a human being is different than what your ideas are. This is something like going back to my 9/11 thing. Like, dude, I argued passionately that 9/11 was not an inside job. The government would never do that, blah, 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 blah. And I had a buddy who was like, dude, like, keep an open mind. And eventually I realized I was wrong. Same thing with religion. I used to argue, you need to believe in Jesus. You need to be a Catholic. You need to do this. Cause I was like, that's what I was told to think. And eventually you realize like, okay, that was my identity at that time. And it shifts over time. So like, recognizing, like, a lot of people in Bitcoin specifically will kind of like plant a flag and say like, I'm going to associate my identity with this. And doesn't always turn out very, like, you have to be careful to, not basically stake your reputation on something that you don't know what you're talking about, or that you have to be conscious of that. That's all I'm saying.
Your opinions will change a lot the older you get. I mean, what you believe in your 20s changes in your 30s and your 40s. And, you hang out with old timers, people 70s, 80s, they're like, yeah, I remember what I thought when I was 50. And, it's hard to relate to until you hit that. But, I think about my own journey in life. My opinions on things have changed so much. I haven't changed who I am and like my fundamental operating structure, but it's just like, again, you just got to approach things with an open mind, because your opinions are based on your access to knowledge. And sometimes if you're missing something important, for example, like what got me into Bitcoin, like I said, inflation is 7%, not CPI, and it's a vector, and you're like, whoa. And like, that broke my brain. It was like 4 days of sitting there and thinking, and then going through and those mental gymnastics, and then you end up on a place like Bitcoin. So, well, all right. We have riffed out for a long time here. Kyle, it's been awesome. Does anybody have any closing thoughts or anything they want to end us off here with?
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was all over the place. Great rip for a Sunday morning, though. You guys are fantastic hosts, and I'll be tuning in. I listened to the episode. It wasn't either of you did. What's the other guy's name? Trevor. With the Alaskan, the guy up in Alaska. I was listening to that recently. It's a great episode. I think he does a great job. So give my props to him as well. And 100%. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's always fun. Every Bitcoiner loves to talk about their Bitcoin journey. This is what we do it for. So thank you.
Are you going to be at the Bitcoin conference coming up in Vegas?
I will be there. Yes.
All right. Let's link up.
Let's do it.
See you there.
Beers
okay,
and Bitcoin. Cool. Sovereign beers.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll plug one last thing. We talked about spending Bitcoin. There's a company that I am just screaming about from the rooftops because I love these guys. They're like such a cool Bitcoin couple. And they also have a business that accepts Bitcoin. They make tallow soap, facial cream, like, sunscreen, natural sunscreen with like tallow instead of like chemicals that kill you. It's called Born to Be Free. So just if you want to spend Bitcoin for the first time, it's an incredible experience. You can pay, you can buy some products that are going to improve your life and support a business that I'm not involved in. Actually, I do have a discount code, but it doesn't matter. Go check their store out, spend some Bitcoin, and yeah, appreciate you guys having me on the podcast.
Yeah, to close it out, man, just send us over your links. We'll have Kyle's Twitter down below, guys, so y'all can find him and his We Are Satoshi podcast. All of his links will be below, along with his website. Check those out, and yeah, go spend some Bitcoin, man.
Let's go. Let's go. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for sure. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.